Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today's theme is simple, super watches from vaunted independence. On the left, Bethune DB28 kind of blue, and on the right, Richard Mille RM030. We're going to run down what makes these watches special, and then we're going to go through a head-to-head, and I'm going to pick my personal favorite from among the two. Let's start with the watch that is undoubtedly the challenger in the space. Now, Bethune has almost as much history as Richard Mille as a company. In 2002, it was established and launched its first product, the DB1 chronograph. Watchmaker maestro Denis Flageolet, he previously of THA and sort of under-the-table movement engineering, became a watchmaker under his own brand for the first time with partner David Zanetta. It wasn't until the watch you see here, or a variant of it, in 2011, that the form we know today as the Bethune style was born with the DB28. It was a 2011 GPHG Agidor winner, so it has an impeccable pedigree and an incredible stance on the wrist. The timepiece is relatively slim, only 11.4 millimeters thick. This one will slide under a cuff. It's broad, however. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you can see it's 43 millimeters in diameter, but that's not counting the hinges of the floating lugs. The floating lugs are a unique proposition because they do change their geometry on the wrist to suit. They can give you anything from a lug-to-lug spacing of 53 millimeters to a 58 millimeter lug-to-lug spacing. The spacing between the, one might say, ogival shaped lug ends is 26 millimeters, so though broad, you can use conventional custom straps on this watch. As you can see, the spring-loaded floating lugs, and that is the term of art that Bethune prefers, change the geometry of the case and the fit equation, but the watch is slim in profile. The strap is handsome and subtle. It's a large rectangular scale alligator leather, matte black, contrasting stitch, but a delicate contrasting black and blue combo. Folded edge, more gator on the bottom, small alligator scale, circle scale. I like seeing a double alligator strap, high-grade stuff. Bethune Pin Buckle in a form that is wonderfully reminiscent of the shape of the lugs themselves. How much do you love that rose gold pin within the blued titanium buckle? And I should mention, all that you see here is flame blued grade 5 titanium, which means it has the high polished gloss that's only possible with grade 5, but it also has an otherworldly blue tone. And no two are exactly alike. The blue isn't completely regular, nor is it perfect. As you can see, it's applied by oxidation rather than any kind of a PVD method, so it's not evenly blue, nor is it even evenly coated. I can say this, however, the result makes the watch virtually a piece unique. And yes, the most impressive technical capability of Bethune may be its ability to recoat these watches if they get scratched. Screw down crown with a double knurling pattern. It's a bullhead layout, much like an old Lapine pocket watch. Wind it up, it has a 6-day power reserve. The dial, sensational. At the center, a Delta-style bridge with Côte de Genève. On top of that, a black polished platform just below the stylized steel skeleton hands. Double barrel, 6-day manual wind power reserve. A palladium and blued steel 360-degree circular moon phase with a correction interval of 1,122 years. That's right, you're going to be waiting for a while. You can also see that there are gorgeous rose gold applique indices and a blue titanium hour track outboard, and there's a hidden power reserve at approximately 2 o'clock on the dial. That little loop style index indicates. Triple parachute system. You can see that the watch, we'll get as close as we can here, features Inca block on the balance staff itself, and then proprietary springs outboard at the edge of the bridge. So between the full balance bridge and the triple shock protection system, this is one robust mechanism. You can see the off-centered hairspring. It's not perfectly circular because it's designed to give the concentric beating properties of an overcoil without the shock and impact vulnerabilities of an overcoil. Sometimes they can double up on themselves, not with a flat hairspring. So Bethune makes its own flat hairspring, its own escapement out of silicon, makes its own titanium and white gold mass balance wheel. All of this is Bethune. They are a full manufacturer. The caseback, you can see a secondary power reserve indicator, somewhat more complete than the one on the dial, as well as the underlying mechanism and sensational engine turning perlage, also blued. It is a signature of the company. This is a sensational watch. Just about the only complaint I've got is that it's not the most legible, and at 30 meters water resistant, it's a sporty watch rather than a true sports watch. 28.8 beat rate. Richard Mille. Established in 1999, Richard Mille only built its first watches in 2001, with Audemars Piguet as a 10% stakeholder and a nations worth of suppliers and business partners, RM is best looked at as a collaborative effort. Richard Mille himself is a businessman, not a watchmaker. And you can see that this timepiece is impeccably marketed. A racing machine for the wrist, that's always been their word of mouth, that's always been their motto. And true to its reputation, the watch does look rather like a Formula One machine brought out in wristwatch form, opened up for your viewing pleasure. Titanium grade 5, just like the de Bethune, but a very different shape, cambered in a tonneau. It takes the form that, frankly, Franck Muller returned to popularity in the early 1990s and roboticizes it. 14.2 millimeters thick. It's neither as thick as it looks nor as thin as the de Bethune. 50 millimeters lug to lug. However, the watch is wonderfully wearable. Let me get a little bit closer and improve the focus of this so you can get a sense of how this watch wears on my wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, and 50 millimeters lug to lug means that this is probably the watch to wear if your wrist is small. If your wrist is below 14.5 centimeters circumference, go with the Richard Mille. In terms of width, it's 41.7 millimeters wide, not counting the crown. The timepiece has a wonderful machine-turned inside-out look, and that continues in the caseband, where it almost has the structural girders of a building under construction. The caseback cambered to trace your wrist, the strap large and nicely vented, vulcanized rubber with a spring-loaded titanium deployant clasp. A much appreciated feature on an aggressive sports watch, and it does give an extra measure of security compared to the de Bethune. Now, the timepiece is wonderfully open and airy, but also easier to read than the de Bethune. Make no mistake, as beautiful as the DB28 is, it can take a moment to resolve the time. A little bit easier with the Richard Mille, and the advantage is compounded at night, where the RM has a loom, the de Bethune does not. What are you looking at? Well, you're looking at a unique power reserve scale and clutch declutch indicator. This watch will actually stop automatically winding itself at 50 hours reserve. If you want to wind it to its full 50-hour power reserve, you need to take over manually at 50 hours. When it falls back below 40 hours of power reserve, it begins winding itself again. You can see it features a date, and it does feature a quick set function for the date that I shall demonstrate now. You can see it features a sapphire disc. The watch also features hacking seconds. The de Bethune features neither hacking nor seconds, nor does it have a date. So the RM, in terms of legibility, precision, and the date display, offers utility not featured on the de Bethune. However, the de Bethune simply has a more spectacular dial. But if you love your movements, RM gives you the pleasure of a display caseback without requiring you to remove the watch. The movement is based on a Vaucher manufacture. Automatic. Twin mainspring barrels, 55-hour power reserve, automatic winding. It features 4 shock absorbers, one at each of the 4 corners. It's an elastomer donut that buffers the movement from the case. The amount of mass of the bridges and plates reduced by the use of grade 5 titanium and then skeletonized for further mass reduction. All of this helps with shock protection. You can see free sprung balance helping further with shock protection. Not only does the watch stop winding itself, the better to avoid wearing out the winding mechanism, but it also features a variable geometry, variable inertia winding mass, combination of titanium and platinum. You can see that these winglets will change the moment of inertia. A greater moment of inertia for more winding vigor if you're a desk dweller like myself, or you can tune it down if you happen to be a very active person. It beats away at 28.8 just like the de Bethune, but note Richard Mille's use of clear sapphires for a monotone grayscale look. Very handsome. And note the spline screws, not just used externally for case assembly, but also internally. Very shock resistant, and although based on a customer caliber, there's a lot of Richard Mille customization going here. Make no mistake, you don't get all of this in a Vaucher or a Parmigiani. So let's talk about advantages now. Throw it on the wrist one more time so you can see its stance. The Richard Mille. Well, it's practically currency at this point. A watch that retails for $91,000 and sells pre-owned between $88,000 and $91,000. You're pretty much standing pat as long as you don't gouge it. It's an easier watch to wear in every respect, day or night, especially night where this has lumen, the de Bethune doesn't. This is an easier watch to read. You want iconic design? The de Bethune is a connoisseur's piece, but this is something even the Gen Pop can relate to. If you want something to stand toe-to-toe with a Nautilus or a Submariner or a Rolex ceramic steel Daytona. That's probably the it Rolex of the moment. This is the watch you want on your wrist. So in terms of status, stature, and design penetration, this watch takes the goods. Now, I'll also mention with 50 meters water resistance versus 30 on the de Bethune, as well as the convenience of automatic winding, a fully vented strap, a fully loomed dial, This is a more sporting watch. This is the choice if you have to get wet. It's not a diving watch, but you can swim with it. It's not necessarily a hardcore, high-impact sports watch until you realize that that's exactly what the movement is made for. So provided you don't fracture a sapphire, this movement in this watch is about as tough as it gets, and with a vented rubber strap and a full deployment, this one is meant to stay on your wrist and stay comfortable to boot. I'll also mention that with automatic winding, you don't have to suffer the tribulations of unscrewing and using a bullhead crown to wind a 6-day power reserve. It is a little bit of a pain with the de Bethune, so the ease of use with the Richard Mille is a major practical advantage. I'll also mention that with bare titanium, it is simply less likely to show scratches and scuffs. While de Bethune can restore the blue finish, you're going to have to send it back to Switzerland to get that done. The Richard Mille is going to cloak most scratches and scuffs in its brushed tie finish. And grade 5 is tough stuff. It doesn't scratch and scuff like grade 2. Also important to remember, this is a timepiece that is quite simply more comfortable on a small wrist. So if your wrist is smaller than 14.5 centimeters circumference, this is the default choice ergonomically. Now, de Bethune, a true manufacturer. This is no customer caliber customized for the purpose. This is made entirely in-house, and not just the movement bridges and plates, the balance, the hairspring, the masses on the balance, the escapement, the moon phase, everything is made in-house. And with 150 pieces of these made per year, far more exclusive than Richard Mille, 4,000 plus per annum, 150 pieces per year, exclusivity de Bethune, manufacturer competence de Bethune, more innovative, all these individual components added together. There's a reason that this watch won the GPHG, whereas the Richard Mille simply won the status wars. Now this is a timepiece that is sensational. The construction of the case, the look of the watch, the use of color. It's not just about engineering. Someday this may be an icon. Make no mistake, today it wins the Innovation Award on every level. Thinner, 11.4 millimeters thick. If you're going to wear one of these watches with a cuff, this is the one to choose. Also, Depreciation is your friend. A watch that sells for $120,000 new sells for $79,000 pre-owned. That's a wonderful proposition. These things depreciate, they bottom out, and then you reap the benefits as the pre-owned buyer. It's also important to note that this is a timepiece that does have that GPHG pedigree, so in terms of penetrating the inner circle of the upper echelon of independence, this brand is already there from a horological standpoint. Richard Mille could be described uncharitably as a branding exercise by an executive who's very good at what he does. I'll also mention that in the end, this is the watch that I would choose. Something as simple as being able to use a conventional custom strap makes this watch more engaging to own, more spectacular to see, more special. And if you do travel in circles where high horology watches are common, and you tend to see RMs as frequently as you see Patek and Rolex, granted, not common, but this is easily the watch to own. And even if it were never to be seen by another set of eyes, I could own this watch and enjoy everything from its crazy use of blued titanium to its sensational floating lugs to its extraordinary manufacture movement. The fact that this watch appeals to my mind first and my heart second doesn't bother me at all. I love the engineering appeal of the watch, and quite frankly, the heart follows where the head leads with me. This is my choice. You guys let me know, which would you pick? Richard Mille and the racing machine for the wrist, or de Bethune and the spaceship? Let me know in the comments below.